Hey, welcome back. I recently returned from Argentina, which is a beautiful country with great food, vibrant culture, and a proud history. As most of you would be aware, however, Argentina is also going through a long run of economic hardship, inflation, and poverty for a lot of the population. It means great value for tourists, but desperation for a lot of others. I wanted to share an experience that I was quite unprepared for, but that's nevertheless left an impression on me, and hopefully it'll serve as instructive for all of us. So I'm sitting in the al fresco section of an iconic 1930s cafe, immersed in conversation and just soaking up the nostalgic grandeur of this beautiful old city of Buenos Aires, when out of the blue I get interrupted by a beggar, something I'm not quite used to and something that doesn't happen very often in my hometown. So my train of thought being broken, my first reaction is to search my pockets and see if I had any loose change, and pass that on, and off they would go. And then within 5 to 10 minutes, another beggar, maybe a woman with little children or some elderly person, would again interrupt my conversation, and I'd either give some more or politely smile and shrug my shoulders. Over the course of the next few days, every time I'd be out for a coffee and the ubiquitous media luna, as you would in Argentina, the approach by beggars became so frequent that it started to become a bit disconcerting and eventually even became annoying. I'd start to size up the person, looking at their looks, their disposition, whether they had any tattoos, and whether they were legitimate beggars or just opportunists or even junkies. So I start making micro judgments about whether they were deserving of my alms or not, and I started to get more and more irritated at the regular intrusion into my personal space. I started to feel like a soft target. Moreover, I started noticing beggars more and more out in the streets and in the general population. They started to stand out from the crowd, and I started becoming more and more uncomfortable about sitting outside. I noticed my mood started to change, and the city began to look a little bit more grey, less grand, and less pleasant, definitely. And then one morning I was in a taxi. As we pulled up to a set of lights, of course, there was a beggar waiting, and he approached the car. So I recall feeling immediately the groan of the "not again" sigh. And here I sat, captive in the back of the seat, as the man approached the car. But to my astonishment, as he approached the window, the taxi driver reached into his glove compartment and pulled out a 100 peso note, about the equivalent of $2 from a small flat wallet, and handed it to him without a word. The lights turned green and off we went. I was suddenly washed over with a sense of shame. Typically my cab fare was about 200 pesos, and this guy just handed over half of his fare wage to a beggar, and he made no attempt whatsoever to involve me in the exchange at all. So I began thinking about how these people all just seem to live side by side, doing the best they can to keep their head above water, and exercising charity on a level that I certainly hadn't witnessed. He didn't look the beggar over, he didn't assess him, he didn't question him, he didn't offer to buy him a meal instead of giving him cash, he didn't lecture him, he didn't abuse him or wave him off. He just gave a little and carried on with his day. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that incident and all the ones that I'd been involved in and how I'd reacted to them over the last week or so. Now, it's been said that charity blesses him who gives as much as him who receives. And certainly all the personal development teachers I've heard or read about talk about the importance of charity as a part of your own journey towards success. I think that's because it not only reminds you to be grateful for your own present blessings, but also because it helps you maintain some kind of connection and empathy with the rest of mankind. And if you think about the needs of others, you'll be thinking a little bit less about yourself. Jim Rohn once said that to be successful, you need to find a way to serve many people. And maybe by keeping many people in your thoughts and in your daily actions is one way of conditioning yourself to receive more for yourself. Anyway, I spent the rest of my time in Argentina with a wad of 100 peso notes rolled up in my pocket, which I handed out with a smile and without any reservation to anyone who approached me at a cafe from then on. And almost immediately, I once again felt the warmth of the place wash over me, and the tension that I was feeling just disappeared, and started to enjoy my time in that beautiful city like I did in the first day or two. Anyway, when I returned home, Australia, as you've probably heard in recent times, was still engulfed in bushfires. People and numerous animals had been killed, and many homes and businesses were lost. It was heartening to see so many ordinary Australians raising money, travelling to places that were affected by the bushfires to help, and basically volunteering in any way that they could. Sure, there was the spectre of arson, as well as incompetence in the management of the fires. Sure, there was looting, and there were plenty of scam fundraisers, and the media, of course, were making sure that we were focused continuously on all of these issues. But my experience in Argentina helped me to stay aware of all the good that was being done by ordinary people. And I certainly felt the empathy of those good works far more strongly than the anger at the negatives that were involved with this tragedy. Now, in another strange extension on that subject, when I returned to work, a patient of mine who was originally from Chile, he began reminiscing about his recently deceased father, and how as a man who had a steady job and a reasonable income during the troubles of the Pinochet era, he had often helped those who were destitute. And whenever a beggar would arrive at the door, he would invite him into his home and instruct his wife to warm up some food. They'd feed him, give him some cash, and send him on his way. And children often came begging for bread, and he remembers very clearly that they'd often leave with bellies full of empanadas. So he mentioned one time when, as a boy, there was a knock on the door, and his dad asked who it was. So this patient of mine answered the door and turned to his dad and said, "It's an old beggar." His dad got up, came to the door, greeted the beggar as if he was a long-lost uncle. He called him into the dining table. He made his wife cook something. And when the man had quietly finished his meal, he gave him a pair of his shoes, one of his coats, gave him some money, showed him out, and waved him off. And to this day, my patient recalls as a child, he asked his father, "Why are you taking this old beggar in, giving him clothes, food, and money?" And his father turned to him and said, "That was Jesus just come to test me." Wow, I mean, what a story. So anyway, my thought for this video is this: if you're approached for an act of charity and it makes you feel judgmental, cranky, or uncomfortable, try taking off your Polaroid filtered glasses for a change. Cheerfully give what you can and be on your way. Your subconscious will be grateful. It'll rack up one more win for you, which has got to pay off sometime. And maybe, just maybe, you'll score some brownie points with the big chief up in the sky. So till next time, please leave your comments below. Hopefully you've got some experiences you can share, positive rather than negative. And until the next video, cheerio.